When we launched our everyday 401k solution, which is in partnership with Vestwell, those were the things that we were looking to solve for, right? How do we make this the easy button for small business
Yeah,
owners,
right,
right?
right, right.
Certainly there are a number of other financial aspects that I think we'll get into today, right? Around, taking the cost burden out. And I think that's, one of the things that we're really excited to see is just the regulators, both at the federal level and at the state level, take notice that, hey, there is a pretty big gap here in the number of small businesses in America that aren't offering a workplace retirement plan like a 401k. What can we all do as regulators to,
Yeah.
to grease the skids?
Welcome to Mission to Grow, the small business guide to cash, compliance, and the war for talent. I'm your host, Mike Vanoy. Each week, we'll bring you experts in accounting, finance, human resources, benefits, employment law, and more. You'll learn ways to access capital through creative financing and tax strategies, tactical information you need to stay compliant with ever-changing employment laws, and people strategies you need to win the war for talent. Mission to Grow is sponsored by Assure. Assure helps more than 100,000 businesses get access to capital, stay compliant, and develop the talent they need to grow. Enjoy the show. What small business owners need to know about 401k. Tell you what, there's been so much change in the retirement plan industry. I'll say certainly the last 10, but I'd say even the last 5, that I think there's a huge portion of small business owners. Most people know what a 401k is. We're gonna get into some details, make sure we're grounded on that today. But I think most folks, they think of 401k, that's a big company thing. Whether it's the legislation, whether it's the technology, the plan administration, they maybe have explored it, some years ago and start realizing, oh my gosh, that if I do this wrong, I could be fined. I could get in trouble with the IRS. This is just too complex. But man, the war for talent is not going away. 4.1% unemployment. I don't think that's changing much, right? We're well past the COVID era here. I think this is supply and demand of labor. And if you're going to compete, even as a small business, you need to be thinking about retirement plans. So, two really super qualified guests to talk about this today. First, Charlie Cote from JP Morgan. Charlie's a visionary leader in retirement planning with over 20 years experience helping organizations optimize retirement plans for both personal wealth creation, attracting talent, and retaining staff. Charlie has been helping business owners for the last 9 years as managing director, head of retirement plan sales at JP Morgan. Welcome, Charlie.
Thank you, Mike. Great to be here.
Also joining Kevin Gaston, Director of Plan Design at Vestwell. Kevin, also nearly 20 years experience in the retirement plan industry. His firm, Vestwell, a really interesting platform in services. They provide what I'll say is the back end, the administrative services and the technology platform that powers retirement plans for literally hundreds of thousands of small businesses across the United States. So I think a combination between Charlie on, call it the investment side, and Kevin on the administration and technology side. I think we're going to triangulate this topic pretty well today. So welcome, Kevin.
Thank you.
So, gentlemen, certainly we're going to take for granted nobody's listening today if they hasn't heard the word 401k. If they Googled 401k and ended up on a YouTube channel and they're watching this video, they knew what 401k was, at least enough to type it into their search bar. But I think there's probably, let's take some mystery out of it for what it is, what it isn't. I'll give it to either one of you guys. Let's just put a definition so people understand this isn't just a big company thing. This is, I'll give it to you guys.
This is kind of the future of savings. That's what it really is at the end of the day, is when you say, what is 401k? Just to give a super brief history, and people might remember if they've ever heard an uncle, grandfather actually at this point, have a pension. They worked 30 years for the company and the company gave them a watch and a pension. And the only pension left right now is Social Security. And we can dig in that maybe if we have extra time at the end about how much fun it is to talk about Social Security. But that's the only real pension game left in town. Are some companies still offering them? Sure. Most companies are not. There's a lot of reasons for that. But what we've shifted from is the company will save for you to I will give you a vehicle to save for yourself. And that's what you're going to do. I might match it. I might give you a little something, but it's not going to be a promised lifelong benefit. It's going to be, this is kind of up to you. This has been 50 years. The 401k has basically been around as a way to defer your own salary for the future. And what's funny about 401k to me is it's a tax code. That's all it is. It's not a product. It's a tax code. 529 is a tax code. A 1040 is a tax form. A W-2. This is the ones most people are familiar with. W-2s, 1040s, 401k. But
Right.
it's become productized as this product. Like I bought a 401k. I'm like, you did not buy part of the Internal Revenue Code. You purchased a service that will help you administer a Section 401k plan.
Right.
And they're only for businesses. They're not for individuals. And a big thing to point out is what they do is they say, if you're willing to offer this and follow our rules, business owner, we're going to give you a massively stepped up amount of savings. And just to put that in perspective, IRA limit, $7,000. 401k limit, $23,500. That is 3.5 times more. My math is not perfect. I hope no one's got a calculator out, but that's a substantially higher level of savings. And to be honest, if you're a business owner and you're asking yourself, and we talk in the industry, what's the right savings percentage? We typically say around 10%, right? That's the number we like. Well, 10% of 70,000 is 7,000. That means that's as high as you could go in earnings before you aren't saving enough to possibly replace that income in retirement. 23,500 is just a good bit higher. So really, when we say what is 401k, it is a company offered, tax qualified, meaning the money grows without taxation during a time you save, vehicle to save, like an IRA, like any other vehicle, except for it's only for businesses. And then they extend that out to the people who work for them, including the owner, and they get substantial benefits for offering it because they're allowing a lot of people. Basically, if you say philosophically, why does it exist? The IRS said, if you offer this great thing to your people, we'll let you take advantage of some nice extra features as well.
Yeah. All right. So clearly it's a tax code. It's not a product, right? So there are firms like JP Morgan that offer great 401k retirement plans that operate under that tax code. Let's hit on one thing to make sure that everybody understands this. 3 ways Uncle Sam's going to get their money. It's either at the time of the check, pre or post tax check. There's the tax on the growth of your asset, and there's tax potential with capital gains if you sell the house, if you sell the stock. So of those 3 buckets, what is it that's really important that everybody understands here that is special about 401k beyond just call it a 3x limit and how much you can contribute versus an IRA?
Every dollar you contribute, you have one of 2 ways to put the money in. There is a third way, but since it's fairly uncommon, we're just going to stick with the 2 big ones, which are pre-tax, post-tax. Pre-tax, today you get a tax deduction. You make $100,000 a year. You put $20,000 in your 401k. To the IRS, you made $80,000 this year. That's pretty nice. If tax reduction today is important, that's a big feature. That money grows tax deferred. That's the second big thing, meaning that every dollar of capital gains, of growth, everything is untaxed. It's just growing on its own without any interference all the way to the day you decide to take money out. You're now 66, you decide to start taking out money. All of that money was pre-tax. So all of it will be considered income when you take it. Option B is, and I like this one, this is actually my favorite of the 2, is what's called Roth. And fun fact, I wish to, Charlie and I both wish to, and Mike, maybe you too, one day in our careers come up with something so compelling that our name stays in the tax code forever. It's actually William Roth. He was a senator and he came up with Roth, and it's named after William Roth, I want to say Delaware. And he came up with the pay the taxes today. And he said, hey, this is great because to the US Congress, what do they love? They love making money today as opposed to money in the future. So if you give them the money today, post-tax, AKA Roth deferrals, then you've paid all your taxes. Now, everything that grows, when you pull it out, it's 100% tax-free. It doesn't even show up as income. And the reason I like that is if you're living on, let's say, because for a lot of Americans, they're going to be living, and this is the studies that they've done from Social Security, most Americans will take 50 to 70% of their income in retirement from Social Security payments. Now, let's say your car breaks down and you need a car and it's pre-tax money. So when you pull out $40,000 to put down towards a car, let's say, now you have to take out more to gross up for taxes. What if it's Roth? It's tax-free. It doesn't impact your tax bill at all. So I like Roth for that. Also, we are in one of the lowest tax environments we've been. We've been there for about 40 years since the Reagan tax cuts in the early 80s. One day, all of you've ever heard the word deficit or the word spending past what we make as a country? Yeah. One day, I assume taxes will have to, go up to take up to make good on that. If it's Roth, it's already been taxed wherever it is today. And for younger folks who are in the early part of their career, that's a big, big, big benefit, because if you're starting your career out, hopefully you'll be making more. Hopefully your tax brackets are going up. And what they do when you retire, you're getting to pull it out. No taxes.
Yeah, right. Charlie, what do you think has changed so much? So I think we get it. It's a tax code. We explain the tax benefits, the 3 places the IRS will get you. Why is it that up until now, and I really do think now, it's this last couple of years here, I will say largely thanks to firms like Vestwell, that this has been a big company thing. What have been the gates that have held small business back from implementing 401k plans and retirement plans for their employees?
We asked that same question in a survey a few years back we've got over 3 million small businesses within our Chase Business Bank, which is part of JP Morgan Chase. We did a survey asking that exact question. What is it, if you don't have a workplace retirement plan? And probably worth for the audience to know that when you're doing Google searches for 401k, other words might pop up like defined contribution plan or workplace retirement plan. They're all, 401ks are all under that moniker, right? It's a defined contribution plan in the sense that you as the employer define how much you're going to contribute, if at all, to your employees. And then your employees define how much of their paycheck they want to contribute into the 401k plan. So when we ask that question that you just asked me of our small business clients, why is it if you don't have a workplace retirement plan like a 401k, what were the obstacles, the barriers to entry? And the most common response was, it was, like you mentioned, considered to be a big company benefit. And the small business owners felt like, you know what, I'm a small business. I'm not a big company. I don't have big company revenues. So 401k plan is just not for us. And so we're just not going to do it. So that was certainly the number one reason. Second was just, well, maybe I'm just not hearing enough from employees about this. And I think there was just maybe a bit of a knowledge gap. And the third was, maybe they had considered it, but they just felt like it was too complicated, right? There was just too many decisions that was required to set up a plan and maybe potentially to maintain one. And so small business owners said, I don't want to make a bad decision, so I'm just going to put this one off.
I think fair to say point number 1 and point number 3 fit hand in glove, right? It was a big company thing. Why was it a big company thing? Because it was complicated. And tell me if I'm overstating this. My sense is it's not less complicated, but firms like JP Morgan, like Vestwell, have figured out how to make this easy for businesses. You guys have taken the complication burden on yourselves, whether it's through technology and how you serve this up to employers and their employees, or the administration, the plan design, the fund lineup, ways to carve out the liabilities. Am I overstating that?
No, that's exactly, when we launched our Everyday 401k solution, which is in partnership with Vestwell, those were the things that we were looking to solve for, right? Is, how do we make this the easy button for small business owners?
Yeah, right.
And certainly there are a number of other financial aspects that I think we'll get into today, right? Around, taking the cost burden out. And I think that's, one of the things that we're really excited to see is just the regulators, both at the federal level and at the state level, take notice that, hey, there is a pretty big gap here in the number of small businesses in America that aren't offering a workplace retirement plan like a 401k. What can we all do as regulators to, to grease the skids? And so I'm sure we'll talk more about that as this goes on.
So, and you listed 3 things in your survey. It makes perfect sense why number 1 and 3 are correlated. It's a big company thing. Why is it a big company thing? Because it's complex. Only big companies who have the resources to get their heads around it could administer. And we'll talk today how the mysteries come out of that. And big driver, one of the big drivers why small businesses should be thinking about this if they haven't previously. Number two, I'm curious on the if you have any additional insight on the employee feedback. I want to say 2014, there were 2.1 applicants for every job opening in the U.S. December of 24, it was 0.9. There are more job openings than there are employees. And employees now have buying power that they didn't used to. You know, if there were more people and there were jobs, more job seekers than there were job openings, I mean, you got kind of take what you can get, right? But when employees have choices, aka 4.1% unemployment, call that full employment. Employees have choices. They're going to go to the places that give them what they want. It might be virtual work. It might be more money. It might be richer benefit plans. It could be it's personal. How do you see that the employee demand, the employee power part of this equation has changed in the last few years?
Kevin, maybe I'll just make this point and then I'll turn it over to you. Just, from our perspective, Mike, 9 out of 10 employees, when they're considering a job switch or, working for a new employer, they're considering employee benefits. Yeah. So in the hierarchy of benefits that we see them, when we ask the question about, what is the level of importance? It's my healthcare plan, right? Need to have that table stakes, and I need to have a retirement plan. And so I think that has certainly, heated up as the unemployment rate continues to be at record lows. You use the phrase battle for talent. And, I am fortunate that I've walked through the doors of a couple thousand small business owner clients to talk about retirement benefits over my career. Regardless of where the client is located in the country, regardless of the industry that they're in, it seems like everybody is caught up in the battle for talent to attract and retain employees.
Yeah, no question. Kevin, you were going to say something?
Yeah, part of it is inertia. And I think, if you look at the stats, the number of businesses that have adopted a 401k plan in the last 5 years is staggering. The business itself, the retirement universe of companies offering plans has practically doubled in the last 5 years. So if you were to play the old statistics probability, imagine you have a bag of marbles. If you pulled out the employee in 2014 and said, what was the odds that they just worked at a place with a retirement plan and still expect that? It's a lot lower than today. Today, it's very high chance that where you were had a plan, where you were before that had a plan. And if you think about the increasing rate of employees, how the shortening of how long they stay at places, they've been somewhere with a 401k. So when they get to that next business, you're like, we don't have one. We're not big. They're like, my last place wasn't big and they had one. This is not a you problem. This is a you problem. Like, you need to fix this. And I think that, we talked about this, Mike, last summer, just the difference between benefit dollars and pay dollars, I think can't be understated to me. Like, people are starting to look at dollars. I live in metropolitan Atlanta. I can tell you that I know people who have started thinking more about what's my life going to be like if I commute an hour every way each day. Yeah. Like, what's 2 hours? There's 2 jobs. They offer about this. This one offers 5% more, 10% more pay, but I'm going to have to drive. I'm going to be in my car for 2 hours a day. Is that the life I want to lead? I'm not going to get to work out. I'm going to go to the grocery store when it's full of people, which I don't like. But I think people are looking at it and saying, what's the benefit balance? And if you say I'm offering a good pay, and I say, well, but you're not helping them retire, or their health benefits aren't what they want. That's where I think people are starting to differentiate. And to your point, Mike, with 0.9 per opportunity,
yeah,
that means they have a chance to be a little pickier and say, hey, I want to live this. If I'm going to spend more time of anything I do in my life at work, more than you see your family, more than you work out, more than you garden, whatever it is, you're going to be at work, it should be something that's helping you build something.
Well, it's worse than that, right? Because it's not just, you and I, Kevin, we're talking before the show. I've lived downtown in some of the biggest, most well-known, wonderful cities in this country. I currently live out in the middle of nowhere, and I look out my window and I see a pasture and cows, right? And it's by choice. As virtual work just becomes more and more a thing, it just becomes more options. So for that person who lived in a smaller community, and not even a small community, but maybe it didn't have the big, large employers in that community. It could be a tech town with no big companies, but lots of small companies. If you previously were restricted to what was a 30 or 45-minute commute from your home, there weren't as many firms that offered it. But in a virtual world, especially with knowledge workers and white collar work, obviously restaurants, manufacturing, there's still geo-based located work. The more virtual work expands, you can live in that small town. You can live in that rural area and work for Google. You can work for Microsoft that has the richest benefit plan, which means you, local tool and die shop, local landscaper, local gas station owner, you're competing in the same pool of talent as Microsoft, as Google, right? And that's a game changer to get your head around.
And there's something you touched on there that I really think is interesting, because you said, geo-locked places like a daycare. Like you can't be virtual at a daycare, like the kids would go crazy, right? Restaurants, like car dealerships, things like that. What I think is interesting is that study after study, what they have found is if you don't feel financially secure, it impacts your mindset when you're at work. Like if you don't think you know what you do with an emergency expense coming up, or you don't think you're on track to retire, it impacts your work. And so what I think is interesting is that as those companies look at this, it's not just to win the war on talent, it's actually to win the war on the talent you do get. The person who says, yes, I'll work for you, you want them to give you their best.
Yeah.
8 hours a day. And there have been numerous studies on like, how does being in a financially precarious position impact your day? And they asked one question, I think it was the Upjohn Institute, but they actually asked, like, how many minutes a day do you spend thinking about your finances? And it was just a direct curve. The worse you thought your position was on a scale of 10, the more you thought about it at work. Because of course you do, because if you see an email saying your power bill is coming due and you're like, I'm not 100% sure I can pay that. Or, you're not on track to retire and you're 56 and you're acutely aware that you're off.
Yeah.
Like, how can you possibly be your best at work when you know that's happening at home? So I think, and that's why I've always said that these dollars you spend there actually bring a greater benefit, because they're helping them see a light that they did not see before.
All right. So we know what a 401k is. We talked about, I love your survey that you guys did at JP Morgan, Charlie, 3 million. That's a big sample size. So it was big. It was thought to be a big company thing. Number one. Number two, employee feedback. Number three, it was perceived to be complicated. I clearly 1 and 3 are correlated. And I think we just did a good job unpacking number 2 about employee feedback. I think that segues perfectly into the mega trends. I think, we just talked about one of the mega trends, which is virtual work. In maybe not even virtual. Kevin, you hit it. It's, hey, if I just came from a job that had 401k, I'm going to expect it in my next one, or I'm not going to take the job if they don't have it. So employees are just simply more aware and exposed to it than they've ever been. What are some of the other mega trends around 401k plans in retirement plans?
Certainly what we're seeing is just new plan adoption, right? So like I was mentioning earlier, certainly the fact that something like 50% of small businesses, and we would define a small business as an employer with less than 100 employees, haven't been offering a workplace retirement plan like a 401k.
Yeah.
Another stat that we'll throw out is that you're 15 times more likely to save for retirement if you can do it in a 401k plan versus doing it on your own in an IRA. And so basically what we found is that, inertia is a powerful force, and it can be a very positive force when you get into a 401k plan and you're automatically enrolled at a small percentage.
Yeah.
You tend to stick with it. And a lot of employers now will increase that percentage sort of automatically for employees. So, this gap of offering workplace retirement plans has attracted the attention of regulators at the federal level and at the state level. And we've seen legislation over the past 5-6 years to take really some of the financial burden off of employers for setting up a 401k plan, giving them tax credits. And then we've seen states jump in and say, you know what, we're actually going to pass legislation that mandates that small businesses offer a workplace retirement plan, or they would just opt their employees into a state-run auto IRA program. So those two forces, I think, have created this mega trend of just new plan adoption. And so I think as of the end of last year, we're just over 700,000 defined contribution 401k type plans. And in the next 5 years, that number is going to surpass 1 million 401k type plans.
Yeah.
And it's really driven by those two big driving forces.
As I think about, so I want to go deeper on those two things. We have other mega trends. I think these are two of the biggest we got to think about. And I call them the carrot and the stick. I think the federal government, Kevin, you talked about it at the top of the conversation, they know the math on Social Security, right? Mm-hmm. And so they want to incentivize employers, small business owners who are the least participatory in retirement plans. They want to create as many incentives as possible for business owners to start offering plans, which you just highlighted, Charlie. And then the states. So that's the carrot in my mind. The stick is the states. States get handed unfunded mandates all the time. They don't get to print money to meet budgets. They're looking for help. They've seemed to have taken a stick approach in mandating. Let's take mandating retirement plans. Let's take each one of these separate. So on the federal side, this started with the Secure Act 1.0. Now it's Secure Act 2.0. We're over a year into 2.0. I don't care which one of you takes this one. What is Secure Act 2.0? Why must small business owners understand what it is? Because this is big.
Well, so what's fun about Secure 1 and 2, because there was Secure 1, and this is one of the cases where the sequel is far better than the original, because Secure 1, about 75 pages. Secure 2 is pushing almost 500 pages. It's a very lengthy piece of legislation. But the reason it's just this, and if you say, why have 19 states adopted auto IRA mandates? Why does every business need to think about this? It's because in this country, if you said there's a Congress, there's a Senate, how often do they agree? The answer is not often. It's not frequent. Secure 2 passed, and I always get the numbers somewhat wrong, but it was 412 to like 8. 8 people were like, no, thank you. The other 400 plus Congress were like, this is great. In the Senate, I think it was 97 to 3. It was just massively bipartisan. Everyone knows this is not going away. Social Security does not help a lot of people get all the way to retirement. It does supplement, which is what it was intended to do. That's why it's actually called supplemental. It wasn't whole paycheck. It was partial paycheck.
Be careful not to fill my inbox with hate mail. Let's not go too far down that path, Kevin.
That's why I said part.
Yes, that was the original intent. You're right.
That was the intent. And to be fair, before it was passed during the New Deal, so we'll do a little history road, 2 out of every 3 people over retirement age lived in poverty. That's what they were trying to solve for. Right. 2 for 3. That's really bad. So it has done positives. It is a thing that we can look at and say it has really helped fix those types of things. But it was never meant to be your retirement strategy. It was meant to be your supplement to keep you above a certain watermark, Yeah. That's really, I always say it wasn't flippers in the pool. It was a life buoy. We just want you not to sink. We're not trying to get you to swim.
That's right.
But back to Secure 2, what happened is they said, this is so important that we are going to incentivize, as Secure 1 had incentives. They said, it's not enough. Let's beef them up. Let's give them even more incentive to start a plan. We're going to give them credits for the first 3 years to start a plan. We're going to give them credits if they contribute to their employees. Are you offering a match? Are you giving them a non-elective? We're going to give you credits. If you use auto enrollment, which is, again, a way to make sure to, again, nudge people into. And I love the book Nudge. It's now kind of a dated book, 08, 07. But one of my favorite examples they had is they had a deli, like the thing in a hospital, and they wanted people to eat better choices. And they simply moved the better choices from the bottom to the top and moved the candy to the very bottom. So you have to squat down. And if you've gotten past a certain age, squatting down for the Snickers bar, mind you, you're like, I'll just take a pear. But it's a small little thing. So putting someone in at 2% and saying, hey, you're probably not going to notice. We're putting you at 2. We're going to bump you up a little bit. This is what Secure 2 was about. They said, this is so important. We're going to, like, to Charlie's point earlier, we're going to make it as seamless to get in. And we're going to reduce some of the burdens that were maybe perceived as making it a big company issue. It's too complex. It's too difficult. But what it did was long story short, the biggest thing it did is it said, we want you, small business owner, to adopt this. So by the way, when I say small business, all the credits only apply if you have under 100 employees.
Right.
In fact, the biggest credits are if you're under 50. So if you say that's not for me, it's like, no, it's for you specifically. This wasn't, Charlie, correct me if I'm wrong, but the SBA considers a small business sub 500, which is actually not that small in my mind. Like 480 people at a company in my mind is a pretty substantial company. But to the SBA, it's 500. To Secure 2, it's 100. And really the meat of it is 50 and down. You can get the max credits out of Secure 2 with 20 employees. So they really built this to try and incentivize exactly the folks who are early in their business formation to do it. And so they wrote a lot, but almost everything in there was simplifying things that were difficult, incentivizing businesses to look at this again with a fresh set of eyes, and, putting cold hard cash in their pocket.
Let's go there, because I don't want this to be just an intellectually interesting TED Talk on 401k. I think the three of us could get pretty wonky and actually enjoy that conversation. But for the small business owner listening to this today, let's talk math. Let's talk money, because this is real money in the form of tax credits incentivizing them. Charlie or Kevin.
Well, maybe I'll just kind of frame it, high level, Mike, and then Kevin can't get into the details, but really think about it. There's two components to the Secure Act. As Kevin mentioned, there's a 1.0, then there's the sequel 2.0. 1.0 established credits for a business owner to actually set up a 401k plan, right? So that number one objection that came up in the Chase survey a few years back of big company benefits, I don't have big company revenue. The cost of setting up a plan may be prohibitive. First off, costs have come way down in these plans. It's not tens of thousands of dollars to set up these plans. It's more like hundreds of dollars per month, and sometimes even lower than that. Yeah. Oftentimes the cost of, a cell phone can be more expensive monthly than setting up a 401k. But there are credits that came with Secure 1.0 that employers get. So not, deductions, but a true credit that they can use to offset the cost to set up a plan.
Yep.
And then Secure 2.0 gives credits for actually matching employees. So when we talk about attracting, you want to have a 401k plan, right? So you can say, hey, I have a workplace retirement plan benefit for you, potential employee. And then you get them on board, you want to keep them, right? And so now you can actually do a matching contribution, get a credit for that. And you can tie a vesting schedule to that, which can be a little bit of a golden handcuff. So maybe Kevin, if you want to talk about more the specifics of examples of credits for employers and setting up a plan and doing matching.
Sure. So essentially it's meant the credits all tie around your non-owners. So that's one thing important. So it's not there for if you're a small practice of doctors and 5 doctors, you're not going to get a lot of credits because they assume you probably have 401k money and you probably have a 401k plan, but it's for those rake and file that they really want you to cover. Each one generates a credit of $250 to a cap of 5,000. So that's why I say the number 20 is your magic number. 20 employees working for you that are not owners will create enough credits to hit 5,000. That is towards the setup of a plan, administration of a plan, paying your financial advisor to do education, help you set up a menu, make sure everything's going well. Anything, they actually left it intentionally broad. Anything relative to the cost of starting or maintaining a retirement plan is in that credit bucket. And I have not seen anything yet that would not fall in that bucket that's around the world of starting a plan.
I want to recap. I just want that to really sink in for folks. You're talking net free setup of a 401k.
Yes.
So
yes,
big company benefit, complexity drive cost, that the cost, Charlie hit it perfect. guys like you and your firms have taken simplified, taken the cost out as you compete for this business. The cost has come out. Now these tax credits mean an employer can set up a 401k plan, and the tax credits can completely offset it. You net getting a new plan for free.
That's right.
I mean, I don't want to miss that in this dialogue. That's a big deal. And there's more. I'll give it back to you, Kevin.
Yeah, there's more. So a lot of times when you start up a plan, like Charlie said, you want to incentivize people by saying, hey, it's not just a plan where you can put your own money, but I'm giving you a benefit. I'm matching some of what you put in. That's big business. Most big Fortune 500s offer some sort of match. Now you can too. For the up to the first $1,000, and it's a sliding scale down over the number of years, but for the first few years, up to $1,000 that you match is also credited back. So if you're offering a match dollar for dollar up to $3,000, and someone uses up $1,000 of that, you get it back as a credit. So you've offered a plan that you set up, minister everything, and that didn't cost you because of the credits. Now you're offering a company match way earlier than maybe you thought you had the revenue stream to do, because you're going to get the credits back. Now, maybe you offer auto enrollment. Again, you're nudging people in because you want them to take advantage of it. You get a credit for that. That's $500. It's just do you have it or not offered on your plan. But really, when you put all these together, that's a lot of incentive to get going. And it's a lot of credits. Again, to your point, this plan can be running itself essentially for free for the first few years while you get this going. And once that's happened, you're starting to get that buy-in. And also you're starting to see yourself as an owner. Let's not forget the owner who's now moved away from the $7,000 pyramid to the $23,500 pyramid. I think the first pyramid in that show was $25,000. So we're not quite there yet, but we're getting there. And one thing I always point out that I think is interesting is if you're a business owner, let's say you're a younger business owner and you're worried about our earlier conversation about Roth. One thing about Roth IRAs, and Charlie, I know you've talked about this before, Roth IRAs have a phase out. Once you make over a certain amount of money, you can't use Roth anymore. You have to use pre-tax. That doesn't happen in a 401k. So there is no cap on what you earn that prohibits you from using the Roth function of a 401k to put away money today that won't be taxed when you pull it out for retirement.
So again, I just want to make this really clear for business owners. Not only are the Secure Act 2.0 tax credits there to get set up and administration of a plan for free, up to a limit of $1,000 per employee, the matching can also be free. Now, 5-year sliding scale, tell me if I have this right, 100%, 100%, 75%, 50%, 25%. So after 5 years, if you match, that's going to be an expense to you. The point here is you can start a plan for free in the first couple of years, even your matching. The money you are giving to your employee as a gift is free. It just kind of, we'll talk about other mega trends that make this simpler, but that right there, Secure Act 2.0, this is like, why wouldn't a business owner be thinking this? Yeah. Charlie, am I overstating this? I mean, I don't work for a regulated firm like you do. Maybe I don't want to get in trouble here for overselling this thing, but I think it is that simple.
I think it is. I agree. And especially with the state mandates now where, essentially half the country has either enacted this legislation or is considering, enacting a legislation that you have to offer a plan. So for many employers, yes, there's the battle for talent, right? You need to have top tier benefits to attract and to retain. But if you live in a state, if your employees are in a state that has the mandate, which pretty soon will be most of the country, something you need to do anyway, right?
Yeah.
So it's really not become I think it's a much easier decision now, knowing that it's something I need to do anyway, and I've got a mechanism where I can use Uncle Sam to give my employees $1,000 in matching. That's a pretty good deal.
Okay, I want you to go deeper on that if you can, Charlie. So the federal government, the Secure Act 2.0, that's the carrot in my mind. The stick is the states. It's a mandate. You must do it. Every state, I should say every state, many of these states, what I wrote down, 19 states currently have mandates.
Yep. And then there's, another half a dozen that are in various phases of actually implementing a mandate.
In just a few years ago, that was 0 states, and now it's 19. So clearly, this is a sea change that's happening.
Yeah.
Some of them copy each other, but there's variability. What are the trends, mega trends that you see? And I'm not asking you to cite, the chapter and verse from each state legislature here, but what are the big trends that you see in the minimum requirements for employers in these state mandates?
One of them is that they're doing exactly what we would think they're doing. They're going pretty low. We have an employee in overall employee count.
Yeah.
So like New York is at, I think 8 or 7. They are pretty low. Like they're not letting you wait till you get big enough. They're saying pretty soon after you start a business. Second thing that's kind of the interesting, because to your point of a stick, I'd like to think setting up retirement for an employee is a win-win. And I'm like carrot or less tasty carrot. But let's be real here. There is a stick component because many of those states, California was one of the earliest states, California and Oregon. California is going to start penalizing. In other words, you didn't adopt our plan and you didn't adopt our plan. Now you're going to pay to not have retirement. And I think that is just, that's not ideal, right? Like that's not ideal if you're a business. First, you had a carrot, and the carrot is take advantage of what we just mentioned, Secure 2.0 benefits. Now, something we haven't mentioned when we compare state to private. When you work on a private 401k plan, you're getting a plan customized to your business's needs. That's a big difference. There is a lot of flexibility in how you design a 401k. Do you offer a match? Do you not? How much match? How much vesting schedule? What are the investments you're going to offer? Who's eligible? All of these things that we think for granted in 401k, they're the customization. Like a 401k is when you go in and you get every feature you want. State IRA, again, is better than nothing. But what it is everybody goes in at a state mandated percent of deferrals, usually 5 to 10%, and everyone goes into one of this lineup of funds that the state has put together. Again, no choice. But again, that option 3 called, I don't want to do this. California, I believe, is the first state that's actively going out there. And Charlie, I don't know if you know any other states doing this, but they're actually saying, if we have not seen you sign up here and we have not seen you sign up here, we're going to send you an invoice. Like we're going to penalize you for not having retirement at your company. And to me, I would say to any business owner listening to this, don't let it get there. And they're the first state, I think, actively doing this, but most states, this is how they work. First, they go into legislation and they say, we're going to do this. Then there's a grace period of a while of, hey, you can do something else, or we're going to start on this day. Then there's a period of you need to adopt it. Then after that, and that's California's one of the oldest, they're there, is now we've given you all this lead time. And I think it was like 6 years plus to get this together. Now it's, if you haven't done it, we're going to charge you because you're really not paying attention. And to me, that's just the thing. There's just something with all the options out there, with everything you can do with the tax credits. Don't let it get there.
Yeah. You said something really important, like New York, down to 8 employees or whatever it is. I think if you're an existing business, let's say you're a restaurant, you're a tool and die shop, whatever, you got your 10 to 50 employees. Historically, legislation has been I'll say the administrative burden of legislation has been on larger companies. Family Medical Leave Act, greater than 50 employees. Affordable Care Act, greater than 50 employees. COBRA, that goes back a long ways, at least greater than 20 employees. These state mandates are reaching down in really trying to touch. I just think it's going to be, you should think about this as, okay, there's a carrot with the tax credits from the federal, but the states just are going to require this. And then, we already talked about the supply and demand of labor and your need to offer this. I'm looking at the clock here. I do want to get to some other topics. Charlie, maybe I'll lean on you more here. I think most businesses think about 401k. It's like, okay, my employees are bugging me for this. I can see how this could help me recruit and retain employees. They want this. This could help them. I think few business owners understand the personal wealth creation component here. So I think there are benefits in a 401k plan to the business owner, and to the employees. Can you just maybe unpack that for me?
Yeah, I think one of the simplest ways to think about it is within a 401k plan, there's essentially three buckets of money that can go into the plan. All right. So bucket A would be, owner and employee deferrals, right? We talked about 401k as being defined contribution plans, right? The employee defines how much they want to contribute up to the limits, right? So they can do that as a dollar amount or a percentage. So that's bucket A. Bucket B is, again, it's optional, but if an employer chooses to match those contributions, and of course with Secure 2.0, you get the first $1,000 is free, pretty good deal to do a match. Bucket C is going to be employer profit sharing contributions. And so these can be made, of course, to the owner and to the employees. And depending on the type of business, sometimes business owners can have the opportunity to skew a larger percentage of those profit sharing dollars to the owners and the other key employees. It's called permitted disparity within these programs. So A plus B plus C can equal a lot of money beyond just the 22,500 or 23,500 that you can save, into bucket A. So I think that becomes a very powerful wealth creation tool for business owners. It also becomes a very powerful retention tool because in bucket A, right, the employee money or the employer, putting in his or her own money, that's immediately vested, right? So as soon as I put money into bucket A, I own it. So if I'm an employee and I leave, I can take that with me to my new employer, or I can roll it into an IRA.
Yeah.
But buckets B and C, the employer match and the employer profit sharing, can have vesting schedules attached to them, which can be these golden handcuffs that I mentioned earlier. Very powerful retention tools. So
Yes.
wealth creation and employee retention is sort of what you can get within your 401k plan if you design it the right way.
Yeah, and I think retention from two standpoints, right? There's the war for talent, which is people expect this as a benefit, and if you don't have it, they're going to leave to some other company that does. But let's face it, even at a great company, there's bad days. It might, your boss might make you mad one day. Knowing that there's a vesting schedule, and knowing how easy it is to go get another job at 4.1% unemployment. If you know that you're walking away from thousands of dollars from your employer's contribution, it might just take it'll almost acts like a cooling off period, right? It's just like, okay, breathe. Maybe I'll take my resume off of Indeed now, and I guess I'm over it. It really does have a massive impact on employee retention.
Right. And you can ladder that out up to 6 years with these vesting schedules. So, we'll see that sometimes be the decision for an employee that would otherwise maybe go get, a few bucks an hour more at an employer, but they've got to factor in the fact that, I'm going to leave behind all these matching or profit sharing dollars if I do that.
Right.
And talks about credits, but just something else to tack on top of that. Every dollar that's not covered by a credit is still tax deductible as a business expense. So the money Charlie's talking about putting into these plans to give that handcuff to incent people to stay, it's still not an out-of-pocket expense. It's still deductible even after where the credits stop.
Right.
And I think that's kind of important to note because that's a cheaper way to retain than money, like regular dollars, because you're getting to say it's tax deductible as a retirement benefit.
Yeah, right. Are there any other major benefits to the 401k plans themselves for the business, for the employer, for the employee that we haven't covered?
I think we've talked about a lot of the things. There's like Charlie just mentioned, you're building wealth for the owner, and you can even build well past that 23.5. You're attracting and retaining talent. You're getting people who can see what you're offering. You're getting tax credits. That's helping so if you're on the fence, if you haven't started one, that's bringing the cost down to potentially zero. I think that's a lot of where this really falls is really, it's almost like, and then of course, I mean, I don't know if I call this a benefit, but you're not going to be subject to the state having to do the IRA or potentially a penalty for not doing anything.
Right.
That is a benefit in the reverse sense of the word.
So let's maybe pivot back a bit then. So we define 401k, We talk about some of the mega trends. We focused a lot on federal and state legislation, carrot and stick, in my words. We talked about the changing, shifting power of the supply of labor and demand for labor. Talk about some of the benefits for business owners and wealth creation. Going back to your survey, JP Morgan survey of 3 million customers, Charlie, number one, it's a big company thing. Number two, employee feedback. Number three, it's complicated. I think there's more to be said here about the complicated. Certainly the tax credits and state mandates are kind of forcing people to digest it, and you just got to deal with it. But it's a hell of a lot easier than it used to be too. What is it about these? What is it about setting up a 401k plan that is just simply easier than it used to be?
Yeah, I'm happy to take that one, Mike. And to be fair, it was 3 million small business customers. The survey response was a subset of the 3 million customers. And fortunately, we didn't get everybody to this, but it was a very statistically important sample size.
Yeah.
What's gotten easier is it used to be a pretty broad menu that an employer would have to kind of select from to put together or implement a 401k plan. Almost like building a car from scratch, right? You've got all these different parts and you kind of need to assemble it.
Yeah.
And so what we've seen over the past several years is that 401k providers like JP Morgan, working with Vestwell and others, have made it more like a package that you would sign up for. So, I think about it using the car analogy again. When you buy the technology package in a car, you're not, making individual decisions on what technology goes into that package. You're just buying the package. Same thing with the luxury package. So we sort of made it a lot simpler for everyday small business owners to simplify the complex by really looking at, all right, what is it that I want to accomplish by offering this 401k plan to my employees? Do I want to match them and take full advantage of Secure 2.0 and 1.0? Do I want to offer profit sharing? What type of profit sharing do I want to offer? So based on those simple questions and the answers to them, you can fall into a package that you can sort of check the box, and now you have the plan in place versus, a couple of hour phone call with retirement plan consultants to go through all of this, which is I think what we heard from a lot of our clients was turning them off. Maybe at some point, they got pitched to do this, and when they looked at all the decisions that they needed to make, they said, all right, this is not something I can handle right now.
Right. Your car metaphor is a good one. The law just passed that I can now drive cars, but there are people selling pre-made cars, and so I gotta buy my tires, I gotta buy a transmission, I gotta buy an engine, and I gotta bolt all these things together. It's just so much versus you walk into the lot, or today you walk online and clicks of the mouse, and I can figure there's the amount of complexity that's behind the scenes hasn't changed. It's probably become more complex behind the scenes, but the buying experience is massively simplified, right? And I think that worked perfectly here.
And I think the ongoing maintenance is also been greatly simplified too, right? There is a component of, okay, how do I actually get the contributions from my payroll into the 401k plan? And one of the things that is dramatically streamlined just the operations for small business owners to maintain a 401k plan is having something like payroll integration, right? The ability to just connect automatically to the 401k plan. So at each pay period, I don't have to worry about, because most of these small business owners don't have an HR department. They don't have a payroll manager all the time. And so the ability just to have it integrated and know that it's happening, and you can make changes if you need to, but you don't have to do anything once the plan gets set up. That's more of the autopilot that I think a lot of the small business owners are looking for.
We've met people where they are, because what I think about is if you've been in this business long enough, you remember the old days that I actually kind of take a little bit of a joy in explaining to some of our younger employees, like what it was like. Like you had to get a piece of paper. My first job in the industry was at a Fortune 500 financial services company. So fully big, and they had a 401k plan. You had a deferral paper where you put your name, address, beneficiaries, and write the percentage in of what you want. There wasn't a tool to tell you what that was of your pay. You just picked a number or a percent. Then there would be a menu of 30, 40, 50 funds. Because I know for the employer, for the business owner listening to this, payroll integration and the stuff that Charlie's talking about is huge. But I just about that participant. I was 21. I flip it over and all these names sound good. Like I'm the large cap, blah, blah, blah. I'm the grow. And I'm like, and I just basically played like checkers, like Connect Four. I was like, I'll just cross a row of investments and what percentages you needed. There weren't target date funds that said, hey, when do you think you'll retire? We'll just go ahead and do it for you. And then I did all this. I submit my piece of paper. If I wanted to change anything, I'd have to request a new piece of paper. In the background, Charlie, the business owner, has to go back on the website or even before that, like change my rates and resubmit all of this. Now there are so many pieces that are automated. And I just think across the board, a lot of that's let people really make it easier for them to not have that burden of, this seems like a lot. I don't know what it was like I never personally, I watch old movies and I like to watch things that have changed, like watching someone sign into a hotel on paper, and now I have that app on my phone. I check it before I get there. My phone is a key. Like I don't even see the front desk unless I want to. And that to me is just a sea change from like, how many nights and here's your physical key. And I think we've gotten a lot of that tech.
Yeah.
All the way down to the 2-person company where they are doing this stuff. And like Charlie said, the payroll's automatic, the setup's automatic, the menu where we say, hey, this seems to be the right thing for you. Here are the designs that make sense for a company like you. We're really giving them packages. This is the package that'll make the most sense for you. And can we customize it a little if you need it? Sure. But they're getting most of it where they're not having to make tons of decisions.
I want to get one more point. So I think it's fair. The big vendors like you guys, both of your firms, you've dramatically simplified this. In doing so, you've driven cost out and made it easier to buy. Driving cost out makes also these tax credits the size that they can get it for free. We've talked about all that. I feel like there's one last thing that has scared the hell out of small business owners is the fiduciary responsibility. Can you take us through what does it even mean to be a fiduciary? What is the fiduciary responsibility for a plan? And I think there's some big things that your industry has done to relieve this burden for business owners.
I'll start and then Charlie, I'll hand it over to you.
Sure.
So once this became the way. So remember, we talked pension, world of pension, all the money is at the company and then they're putting it in there for you. In 401k, like Charlie said earlier, every dollar you put in of your own money is yours always, 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 always. You could never, it can't be taken by your employer. Because of that, that employer does have a responsibility to consider. They are personally selecting and holding the place that'll hold the money of their people. That's why there's a fiduciary standard passed by the Department of Labor. The actual thing is called the Employee Retirement Security Income Act of 1974. It actually turned 50 last summer, but it defined a fiduciary because you are holding their money in this place for their future benefit or for their, maybe if they pass, their children or loved ones. That is something that's important. So they want to make sure you're running it correctly. You're following the rules. So what's changed a lot is it used to be that every bit of that responsibility was all on the owner. Today, we do a lot of what's called co-fiduciary work, where we stand behind something or Charlie's team stands behind something. You're still ultimately in charge because you picked the people you work with, but you're picking people who are also going to stand up with you. So on our side, for instance, filing the 5,500, making sure that deferrals go in correctly, all the things about what's called an administrator or a 316, it's just a part of that code. A company like Vestwell will stand behind you and with you and say, if anyone ever has a problem with this, we're there with you.
And what you just said is what scares historically has scared the hell out of small business owners. It's the filing of your 5,500 as section 316. We don't even know what the hell those things mean. Right. And I can file some tax form of 5,500. What if I did it wrong? It's like you guys doing this on behalf of clients and demystifying and coming alongside and co-owning the responsibility here. I just think maybe there's certainly the simplicity. There's certainly the driving cost out. Obviously, tax credits is a big thing. Get it for free. But I think the thing that freaks small business owners out the most is like, what if I did this wrong? This is just too much risk. I can't take it on. I think that may be, and we're ending here on maybe the thing that's the biggest impact of all. Charlie, what do you have to say here?
Yeah, again, I totally agree. It's about the easy button for small business owners. I think that's really what's changed over the past several years is, packaging up the plan design. So, you have what would be many choices made with one or two simple choices. And then the ongoing kind of operations of the plan, knowing that that's outsourced, right? All of the things that I don't want to think about behind the scenes under the hood. Most people, when they buy cars, and I don't even pop the hood to look at the engine. I can remember going with my dad and, we're popping the hood and we're looking at the thing. I think the last several cars I've bought over the past 20 years, I don't remember doing that, right? So I don't think small business owners want to.
Would you know what the hell it was if you did, right?
And I'm not qualified to do that. I think most small business owners feel the same way, right? They don't necessarily want to look under the hood. They just want it to work, right? The same way a car is supposed to work. And so that's what's included in the packaging, right? It's just outsourcing the responsibility for the operations and then also outsourcing the fiduciary responsibility for the investments in the plan. That's what they want. And that's really what the market, I think, has risen to do.
Yeah. I think that's a great place to end. Gentlemen, really, really good conversation for small business owners and business owners. Maybe not a business owner. Maybe you're a manager at a company, but you care very much about attracting and retaining talent. This is an important thing to consider. Just know this is no longer a big company thing. The cost has come down. It's simpler to buy. There's less risk than there's ever been. And if you're going to compete in today's war for talent, you need tools. We talked about the carrot from the federal government in form of tax credits. We talked about the stick in the form of state mandates. There's also the sword. You need a benefit plan like a 401k to win that war for talent. So really, really great conversation. Kevin and Charlie, thanks for joining me today.
Thank you very much.
And for everybody who joined, hopefully this added value. If it did, we look forward to talking to you next week. And thanks for letting us be part of your Mission to Grow. That's it for this episode of Mission to Grow. Thanks for joining us today. For show notes and more episodes, visit us at missiontogrow.com. If you found this content valuable, I invite you to share it with a friend and subscribe to the show. If you really want to help, I'd love it if you left a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, YouTube, or wherever you listen. Mission to Grow is sponsored by Assure. Assure helps more than 100,000 businesses get access to capital, stay compliant, and develop the talent they need to grow. To learn more about how Assure can help your business grow, visit assuresoftware.com. Until next time.